Hey, good morning to Awakenings Within. Did you notice?
What?
I added like 2 seconds of music to that.
No, sorry, I was daydreaming. What? Replay
I
it.
wasn't able to add us into the thing to dance either, though.
Oh, I see.
Which was weird. I changed it. You didn't notice. There was like slight differences.
No, sorry.
I need to make a new one.
Okay.
I'm going to make a new one.
And you still haven't faded it, so.
No, I did.
It dropped them straight, stopped.
Well, because I had to. You have to stop it right before it goes to the next. Good morning, everyone. Who's got coffee? Whoa, I almost just knocked over my whole thing.
We almost had a Monday morning disaster.
Running late is my cardio.
So you know what? I was just thinking about this now that you did this. You know, I think our coffee mugs we could psychoanalyze our coffee mugs. And the reason is every Monday you have a different one and I have the same one. So what does that say about our personalities?
I know what it says about our personalities.
Exactly.
Oh, I forgot to change my name. Anyway, good morning. Well, hi, Heather.
Exactly.
This was a gift from her.
It was.
She says I run late all the time. I don't.
Got it.
I only run late half the time. Maybe not all the time.
But it must be Heather's in the late half.
Yeah, it must be.
Okay.
She'll call me out. Don't worry.
Yeah, the girl.
She's like, I hope you don't get mad. I'm going to give you this. I was like, hey, I think it's cute. Okay, 3/4 of the time.
There you go.
Not 3/4 of the time. I'm on time sometimes. What does that say about me if I have a different coffee mug and I'm late?
That's what I said. Let's psychoanalyze Sandy's. Well, so we know one thing is you love diversity.
I do.
You get bored with the familiar.
I do.
Yes.
Yes.
So you're somebody who has to change it up.
All the time.
Exactly.
All the time. Well, except for my backdrop.
So what that means is you will never be an accountant or a CPA or somebody who is, about, keeping things consistent.
What's that?
Well, it's what we talked about last year. You're a bumblebee.
Yeah.
Cross-pollinator. Somebody who likes to loves diversity of what is it? Flora and fauna? Fauna and flora, however you say it.
Yeah. Flora and fauna. Yes. I do. It's funny is tonight my leadership personality person is coming on my other show.
Okay.
And he's going to analyze my personality. Just letting you know that you're, very prophetic on that right now.
I think you would be Tinkerbell.
I am Tinkerbell. I was Tinkerbell for
Yeah, you're Pixie.
I was
Pixie dust.
Tinkerbell for Halloween. Bob is consistent, reliable, dependent, and likely on time.
Exactly. I'm boring.
No, that doesn't mean you're boring. That means that you're stable and you're
No.
steady.
The difference between you and me is that you're like this bee that goes everywhere. I stay in the same spot and just drill down. I just keep drilling. I just keep going. The problem with that
you're
is
a
sometimes
carpenter
you get
bee
so
and I'm a
doggone.
bumblebee.
What's
You're a
that?
carpenter bee. Carpenter bee?
I don't know. I don't know anything about those.
Huh.
But I'll stay in the same spot and keep drilling until I get to the bottom of a thing. I got to always get to the bottom of it. Like, what is really driving this thing here? So sometimes those are bottomless holes that I've been drilling for 60 years.
You know? Oh, yikes. See, I couldn't do it. No, I didn't realize that I had that kind of personality for a while. Until like we would be in a new, naval station and I'd be like, okay, it's time for us to move now. Okay. And then when we got to Norfolk, Virginia, and all the bases were there and he could just hop from each base and not leave, it drove me insane. I was like, okay, aren't we moving out? No, I'm moving to the other base over there so we don't have to move. Isn't that great? I'm like, no, it's not great. He got orders to Puerto Rico and Hawaii and turned them down. I wanted to kill him.
So we definitely know that Sandy is a bird who will not live in a cage. Oh, you are not a pet shop bird.
No, and see,
you're a bird that needs to be in the wild.
Yes, you need to tell any potential partner of mine that, because that's not ever gonna.
Heather's absolutely right. I mean, this.
We would,
hope this doesn't come out wrong, but I'm a bit of a voyeur, meaning that I actually love sitting at airports or go to bars and watching people. Because she's absolutely right. I'm fascinated. I like watching all the dynamics and
Good
and
morning,
studying
Larry.
people and human behavior and curious.
Yes.
Because I know behind all of these dynamics, there's stories, like huge books and stories of how that particular person got to that moment. And that's what always fascinates me.
Well, I do too. I mean, believe it or not, I love doing that at the airport.
Oh, do you?
I'm not outgoing. When I'm by myself, sometimes I'm not outgoing. Can you believe that?
Well, a fascinating story. I mean, this is the result of the good side of my personality. I was coming back from Zimbabwe a few years ago, and I was, sometimes you have 6-7 hours between flights, and so I was in DC. I think it was DC, and I was just sitting there, and there was a young Black woman that was sitting across from me, and I was sitting there, and I just kept having this thing in my spirit about striking up a conversation. And then I was arguing with myself because I was like, yeah, but she's going to think I'm being forward. And, I was battling all the social no-nos and my soul kept saying, no. Right. Anyways, I strike up this conversation with this woman who, of all things, was actually from Zimbabwe as well. But she was here in the States. Long story short, she's had this incredible journey, young mother, all this kind of stuff. And she was telling me, we started talking about writing, and I was telling her that I'd written a couple books, and she started asking me about it. And we spent like 3 hours talking. Well, anyways, she's gone on to write 2 books.
Oh, wow.
Profound books. I mean, stories about overcoming, about getting up off the floor after your life has been devastated.
Yeah.
And right. And it was interesting. So we talk all the time, via Facebook and stuff like that. I'm so proud of her.
Awesome.
You know what I mean? Because she ended up taking, like I said, take your story, your pain, like I did with what happened with me in Zimbabwe, and use it as a means of blessing others. In other words, don't be afraid to go back and revisit your pain, but find the good in it. Right. And she did it. And I'm so proud of her because she's gone on and just touched thousands of lives through these books.
That's amazing. That's great.
So
And
that's
what's her name?
sometimes your
Are you?
voyeuring at the airport can turn into being something
Yeah.
very positive.
Yeah. I've met some really interesting people. I met car salesmen or car dealership owners and going to give me a good deal on a car. Then I met yoga instructors
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean if you open yourself up. Now the thing is some people, as soon as they get in their seat in the airplane and they put those earbuds on, you're like, yeah, they're not talking to you.
No.
They're like, leave me alone.
Right.
They do not want to mess with your silliness.
They've put up their personal space boundaries.
Yes, they're like, nope, you're not talking to me on this flight. And sometimes, and what I hate about that is like they're in their own little zone, and you have to go to the restroom, and like you have to get by them, and you're like, excuse me.
I have a friend who has a bit of what I will call a prophetic type calling. He lives in Texas, but he's had the most unusual journey because he ends up consistently on airplanes somehow sitting next to high profile people. Like, I just give you one example. He was on a flight somewhere and sitting next to this guy, he just ordinary guy who over the course of the flight, he discovers he's the head of NORAD, right? Which is the big mountain in
I know NORAD. Uh-huh.
Yeah, in Colorado Springs. And he gets invited there. The guy, the conversation goes on, and next thing you know, 3 months later, he's at NORAD being toured through the mountain and seeing everything. And
that's neat.
It happens to him all the time. Sometimes it's musicians, high profile musicians that you wouldn't recognize outside of the stage, right? Or businessmen. And this has happened to him his whole life.
Oh, that's neat.
It's like his whole journey has just been God strategically placing him next to somebody.
So he has to impart something to them, maybe.
Yeah. But so one of the things that you always got to look for, when you're traveling or you're moving is God, what are you doing here?
Yeah, that's what I like.
Yeah.
I never know. I never know.
Well, the hard thing about it is again, you've got, the person who puts up the wall and doesn't want to be talked to. There are some people that do that and need to be talked to, right? They put up the wall and they're kind of hoping somebody will climb it and come rescue them.
Yeah.
So you really have to be discerning in your spirit as to what it is you're sitting next to or you're interacting with.
Yes. Well, I mean, I felt
Larry's
like
the people watcher too, he says. So
yeah,
Larry's got a whole bunch of boys on here this morning that like to watch people.
I do. I like to go to the mall and do that. Like I'll go by myself and sit there and just watch people and make up little stories about them. You
don't even have to make it up, man. They've got. I mean, sometimes it's amazing. Like I don't know. This is just where my brain goes sometimes when I'm in crowds. But I mean, you're sitting in a bar and you realize the enormity of what you're in the middle of, because each one of these individual human beings has an enormous story. Right?
I know.
They have a journey.
And
behind them is a whole lineage of people that have stories, right? And so all these stories are right. And here we are, and we're just, this is where I get myself in trouble, because here we are just having fun and staying on the surface, and just under the surface is all this amazing stuff, And so that's why it's hard for me sometimes, and I just don't do I don't really go to bars or do a lot of social stuff, because I can get overwhelmed sometimes by what my soul starts picking up when I'm around people,
Yeah. Good morning, Amy. Thanks for joining. Well, so there's a question.
Okay.
If somebody were wanting to share their story, people go through this process in their head, like, should I, shouldn't I? What makes it worthy and valuable to share it? First of all, why does somebody need to hear my story? And, what is the, I mean, what
Well,
do
one of
you
the
think?
things that here's the hard part in this is that sometimes, we're in pain or we're feeling insecure, and we have this need to tell our story. And so we
Yes.
end up kind of, I don't know, God, this is going to sound gross, but we end up vomiting over people, right? It's like there's just
Yes.
this thing
Yes.
is coming out of us because we're so desperately needing, right? And of course, when people feel that vibe,
Yeah.
they tend to push away. So
Yeah.
one of the things that I have a saying that I use all the time on myself, which is, Bob, don't drive a 10-ton truck over a 1-ton bridge.
Yes.
So I'm always stopping before not always, because sometimes I don't, because sometimes I blow through the red flags, unfortunately. But I try to stop and evaluate, can this relationship handle what I'm about to share, right? So one of the things is how strong is the relationship? The other issue is this an appropriate time,
Yeah.
right?
Sometimes it's not. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Sometimes it's not.
sometimes the context isn't right, right?
Yes.
Sometimes it's premature.
Yeah. Some people like to live in their story instead of moving past their story. Yes.
Right.
It's true.
Yeah.
That's
And if we use Cartman's relational triangle, what Heather's pointing out is that's what we call victims.
yeah.
Right?
Don't stay in the victim
Victims are
mentality.
people who can't move out of their tragedy or their pain, and so it's become a bedfellow for them, and they
This
live in it.
That
They
brings up a
wallow
really
in it.
good point. So we were talking in the very beginning, and hi, good morning, Kittlesons. I love
From
their
Bella
name.
Vista.
I love the Kittlesons.
Yeah, they're
name.
a precious couple.
So here's the thing. Like we were talking about our personality types in the beginning.
Right.
So me, because of my personality type, I probably don't stay in victim.
No.
You were saying I'm transitional. I'm just that person, that
Well, you're
personality type.
transitional and transactional.
Right. So I don't stay there. And there's
Right.
a reason, because it's part of my personality makeup.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the pros and cons to that, right? So the
Right.
pros are I don't stay there and stay a victim. The cons are I don't stay there and process being a victim.
Right.
So the con is
Yeah.
that I didn't sit enough with my stuff to process it and to deal with it. Instead, I just glossed it over and moved to the next thing. Well, then it comes back to bite you later because you get triggered by something. And then you go, why am I acting so irrational? Why am I not acting so steady? Blah, blah, blah. So that's the pros and cons of it. So now that I have recognized that about my own self and personality, sometimes I sit with it. Like if something's happened to me, I go, okay, process it, get through the negative stuff, and then go forward, and give it to God. Because, that's what I do is I give it to God, but then I don't deal with it. I'm like, okay, God, you take it and I'm not dealing with it. Now that's a good thing to do. But like I said, because I give it over, I can also take it back,
Well, I was pointing this out on my Facebook page last week, but when we're young, we see life sort of black and white, right, wrong, black, white, right? It's either this or that. As we age and we have these experiences, we discover that life is actually lived between diametric points, right? So you have good, evil, light, dark, right?
Right.
And part of the dynamics that we're talking about here is two worldviews, but they're really different, right? They're exact opposites. So what I've sort of come to the conclusion is that life is somewhat like the slide bar on a stereo, between your left and right speakers, right?
Yeah.
And so what happens is that you as you get older, you learn how to move that bar back and forth because every situation has its own unique balance, right?
Right.
And that was what I believe kind of defines the word wisdom, right? Wisdom is as how to use knowledge, right? Because knowledge is the extremes, right? This fact and this fact. But wisdom is the capacity to take that knowledge and know what's appropriate for this situation.
That's right.
And so there's a time, I think Solomon, who's I consider sort of the father of the wisdom scriptures, you know what I mean?
Yes.
You know, he talks about there's the time and a season, right? And he talks about the extremes. He talks about the diametric, you know, a time to laugh and a time to cry, you know?
Yes.
So it's learning to live in that space. And I think as we get older, you know, we learn to find that balance. But I think, you know, with me anyways, I've had to really learn to listen to that voice inside. There's something God's put in us. We'll call it a spirit, you know, the spirit that many times is talking to us, but it's like a gentle prodding, right?
Right.
You've got to listen to it because it'll tell you in a certain situation, no, back off. No, now it's time to go forward, right?
Right. And people don't realize that that's God's speaking.
Well, what happens is and I call it red flags. You know, there's these little red flags, or you can call them stop signs. But, you know, when I was younger and I was moving towards, I was so intent on to get to this end, right? And I was going so fast. There was all these warning signs, and I just kept blowing through them. And then I had a wreck on the way to getting where I wanted to go.
Yeah.
And then I go, oh, what happened? You know, it's like I went around that curve way too fast and flew off the road.
Exactly. Or sometimes you're the driver and God's going, let me drive. And you say, no, I got this.
Yeah. So it's learning to listen to those red flags, or we call them checks. You know, you got to check in your spirit, right? So you're in a situation, your brain is saying, I'm going to share this thing. Right.
Yeah.
And then there's this little voice that goes, nah, you know, maybe not. Right. If you don't listen, you're going to end up collapsing your bridge. Yeah. Right. Because you're going to take this 10-ton thing over this 1-ton relationship, and it's not going to turn out well. And so when you're sitting in the bottom of the ravine going, what happened?
What happened?
Right.
Right.
And I'm still, you know, at 60, I'm still learning these life lessons.
Yeah, I think we always are. You know, I think we always are. I mean, I'm watching a journey of a couple, you know, in their years, and they're still learning, you know.
Right.
And I see that. I'm like, oh, because I think, oh, I can't wait till I get to this place, and then I'm going to be more wise. And then you're like, actually, you figure out at some point, because I've heard them say this, that you know things, but you don't know everything.
Well, so it's my personality because I'm a drilled down personality, right? I'm a person, right? I can get tunnel vision real easy. Right? I didn't know that about myself when I was younger. The great thing about people with tunnel vision is they get stuff done.
Right.
Right. I mean, all through my life,
I'm
as
squirrel.
I was, you know, heading up organizations, or I was always the guy responsible for getting stuff done. And you know what? Hell or high water, it got done. I mean, I could tell you story after story of things I was able to accomplish that everybody said couldn't be done.
Right.
And the reason was I had tunnel vision, right? But that same strength is also a weakness.
Right.
Right. Because the fact of the matter is when you're in that mode, you're careless. You sometimes don't take in people's feelings. You know what I mean? You end up offending people. Relationships end up, you know, falling apart because you're so focused on getting the task done, you don't consider the person.
Right. Yeah. So I couldn't work
for all
for you,
my strengths, I also have great weaknesses.
So I couldn't work for you.
No, we could not be married or work together.
Because squirrel. Well, actually, what's really funny about my when I work in administration, I'm really good as being a team person, and I'm really good at writing down lists and getting things done. But if squirrel comes in, I'm off to the squirrel.
Right.
Email comes in, I'm off to the email. Phone call comes in, I have to take care of something. I mean, it was great for me when I was a practice manager because there were always fires that I had to put out. So it was like a perfect job for me because I was always having to keep up with the things, conflict,
Right.
constantly. So I'm really good at conflict resolution because of that. I'm really
Well,
good at
the thing for me
putting
is
that
I've
out.
recognized the fact that I can go down the rabbit hole, as we say, right?
Yeah.
So it's very important to me to have friends in my life like you or others, because if I get lost in the hole, they pull me out because I got a rope, right? And so, I mean, Mike Jones is probably, for me, the best at it. He just forced me to go out. You
Yeah,
know what
where
I
is
mean? It's
Mikey
like,
today?
what?
Where's Mikey today?
Well, they were down at the lake. That's all I know. So
Oh,
he's probably
nice.
but I'm just saying he's real good at, but he's more like Rocky. Like he'll throw me in the boxing ring and go, okay, and start whooping on me. You know what I mean? But it's good for me. You know what I mean? It's like I've recognized in our friendship that his style is good for me because it's sort of like slaps you.
That's right. That's right.
So you need people like that. Sometimes you just need somebody to hug you and go, "Hey, come back." So
well, you do need that diversity.
oh,
There he is.
See?
I knew he was here.
But you know what I mean? So it's really, really important in our lives to have people who are different than we are. You know what I mean? Friends that can speak into our lives that are the opposite of us. But the problem with that is that,
and that's why I like Heather in my life because she and I are different, and I like that. I like having different friends.
You like it, but you need it, but it's difficult sometimes because you have to manage those things, right? You have to work hard in relationships with people who are very different than you, because the way you'll approach the same thing, right? So what I've had to learn is to let go, right? So somebody with my personality who in my brain, can do it better than everyone else because I understand all the pieces to the puzzle. I've had to learn over the years, you know what? It's more important that person I delegate it to that person and let them go. And you know what? They're not going to do it like I would do it.
No, they're not.
The issue isn't how they do it. It's just that they get it done, right?
That's right.
And so that was a big learning curve for me because I could have very easily, because of the way that I'm wired, become a micromanager.
Yes, I can see that. Yeah.
Because my brain understands all the little different processes. And so I had to learn over the years, let's step back, let go. Just make sure that the people that you're hiring or working for you are capable, able, right?
Right.
And will get the job done. How they do it is less important than
getting it done.
Right. So that was, which to me is learning humility. That's humility, right? That's learning that it isn't all about you or how you would do it or your particular way, right?
And that's why it's really important for you to know in an organization. That's why tonight I'm actually covering exactly what we're talking about in my show tonight. And my Sash Coach page, and Judy is my neighbor, and she does all the DISC tests,
Oh
and the leadership personality tests and everything.
INTJ.
Yeah. Well, she's doing the DISC one, the DISC.
Okay.
So I'm a high I, which is not a surprise to anybody that probably knows me, and and then my sister had a neat one, but we'll share that later. But anyway, my sister is going to be on my show tonight, so that's
there you go.
But we're way different. Like her and I are way different.
Oh, really? We've had him. I had you on. You guys, as I said, you like salt and pepper.
Literally salt and pepper.
White hair, black hair, personalities. Like it was just for me, it was a treat. I love your sister because she's so different than you, and the two of you together just makes such an interesting couple.
We have a lot of fun though. But
together. So remember my analogy about bicycle pedals. right? Opposites. So
Oh, yeah.
you and your sister have learned when it's time for her to be on top, you on the bottom, and when you're on the top, right? You learn, and once you get your rhythm down in those
Yes.
relationships, your
Yes.
bike moves.
Yes.
When you lose that give and take and that capacity to learn when to lead and when to step back, that's when the momentum stops and the relationship falls off.
Right. Right. And that happens with any relationship, you know. I mean, any,
Right.
all. You know, I mean, there's sometimes I feel really close to my kids and sometimes not. And sometimes I feel really close to my siblings and sometimes not. My dad, sometimes not, you know. I mean, it's all shifting. It's always shifting. And it
Well,
really
isn't that nature though? I mean,
right.
nature
So
is seasonal.
that's right. That's right. And same
So
with friends.
relationships are like that. You go
Yeah,
through seasons in them, you know?
that's right.
I
Oh, by
mean,
the way,
if we had the Kittlesons on, I mean, I don't know. Have you guys celebrated your 50th yet? Because they've been together for a long time.
oh,
You know, he
nice.
was, the former head of the fire department in Sheboygan. She was an alderman. You know
Oh,
what I mean?
wow.
So they're two very different personalities, very high, very successful, both leaders. I mean, you talk about two people that could buck heads,
Yeah.
two alphas,
Yeah.
Well,
I think
and I love, we lived next to each other, and I was always kind of looking up to them because it's like, okay, this is interesting how they manage their strengths.
well, it's really a decision. It's a decision to compromise. It's a decision to, like we talk about, a lot, not be right. You don't have to be right all the time. Even if you're right, you don't have to be
Well, 54, she said.
right. Oh my goodness.
You guys are amazing.
Oh, congratulations. Wow. So, I mean,
Well,
it's just
there's
a
a
give and
saying,
take.
you
You have
can
to
be
make that
right
decision.
and wrong,
Yeah.
right? It said there's a saying, you can be right and wrong,
Oh, yeah.
right? In other words, the need to be right can be very wrong in a certain situation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Even if you're right.
That's what I'm saying. Even if you're right,
Even if you're right. Sometimes I'm like,
there's
I'd
a
rather
time not
agree
to push
yeah.
that.
Yeah, I agree to disagree, and it's fine. I mean, and that's not me not making a stand for my position. It's me saying I value this relationship more than I value being right.
Yeah.
I value a relationship, which I do actually. That is how I operate because I value people's relationships. I
Well, the
value people.
question is why do we need to be right? You know what I mean? It's like I see this all the
Because
time. Then
it's been a
it's
journey and a
powerful because
struggle.
the need to
Yeah.
be right is so strong because it's so connected to our sense of self-worth that people
It
will
is.
blow up relationships
Yes.
needing to be right. And it tells
Right.
you just how powerful that need is in the human soul if you're somebody who's not secure in yourself. Like if you're needing affirmation from others, if you're needing to be told, oh, you're so right,
Yes.
you have a serious vulnerability and
Yes.
and it will cost you all kinds of friendships and relationships.
Yeah. I've had that, when I like you're saying, it's self-esteem related because sometimes when I'm feeling kind of down about myself, I guess you'd say, I do need that little bit of affirmation. And then I feel guilty about wanting the affirmation. Like
Right.
I do this whole crazy little cyclical thing. Like, why do you need that? Why do you want that?
Right.
You're wrong for wanting that. But then I'm like, well, am I wrong for wanting a little bit of affirmation? I don't know.
Mm.
And then I have to go through the whole circle of like, what's going on with you? What are the triggers here? So then I have to, so even though I seem like I flit around like the bumblebee, I really do process a lot of things and try to divert my attention. I'm good at diverting. I'm really good
Well,
at diverting.
I think again, going back to what we were talking about earlier, these red flags or these little warning signals,
Right.
And as you get older,
They are.
you kind of learn them. And there are times where I am, I'll be sitting there and words are coming out of my mouth and I'm going, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? Like, you know what I mean? Because I'm feeling something going on in my spirit, and I realize that, you know, in some ways what I'm doing, it's manipulative because I'm wanting something.
Right.
Right? I'm transacting here. I'm saying something because I want something, but why do I need that? Right? What,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And so sometimes I'll just like suddenly go quiet because I'm wrestling in my own soul with the why am I doing this?
But the thing with me, so even though I might not be a sit back and watch people, I can actually I can feel somebody's feelings. Like I can tell when somebody's feeling down about themselves, or I can assess kind of their whole what's going on. So I try to be that person to speak to them and go, "Hey, you're doing a good job," you know, or "Hey, you know, I'm that person that surveys that and wants to be the encourager. Like I'll be the encourager that I can see that somebody's missing that piece, and I'll go, "Okay, this is, you know."
Well, again, we're talking about balance here, right? Because the reality of it is God created humanity to be relational. That's
Yes.
why we have babies, right? You have a mother, right? You have a mother, right? I mean, we could, you know, we could be like other creatures and hatch, you know, eggs. And no, but I mean, there's a reason why a woman carries her child for 9 months. There's a connection. That's a relationship, right? We're born into families. It's relational, right?
Yeah.
You know, we have friends. It's relational. So God created life to be in a community. Why?
Right.
To affirm us, to, you know what I mean? Because, and
Right.
we need others. So there's that one side of the equation where we were designed to need others, right?
Yes, we do.
To belong, to be a part of something, to find our sense of self through this community that helps guide us into adulthood, right? All of these things. So there's that side of it. But when it gets way out of balance, you have what Heather was talking about earlier. You have people who wallow in their pain, in their, right? In other words, they're stuck, right?
Yeah.
Right.
That's
Or,
right.
you know, you're that person that's just basically jumping into the middle of your social community, and you're just sucking from everyone because you're so neat, right? It's like you go to the club, or you get with, and you're like got a straw in your, you know, and you're sucking everybody's soul, right? But I can feel it. Like, you know, Jesus, it talked about Jesus felt, you know, virtue go out of him when the woman touched him, right?
Right.
Like he could feel her pulling, right? And I'm the same way, and why I got to really be careful. But at the same time, again, if you look at it, the other side of the equation, it's an incredible time to touch people.
Yeah.
So it's this balance again. So the reality of it is that most everybody that you will relate to today, tomorrow, this week has a need.
Yeah.
There's something in their soul that they're in need of. And so this is where I'm always asking God, you know, hey, you know, can you give me something, some word, some encouragement, something to say to people? You know, I don't have money to give them, but I can give them something even more precious, which is a word of encouragement.
Right. So a friend of mine and I were talking about something about God, and is he the one, you know, that makes, you know, things happen? And this is a broad subject, I know, but we were talking about, you know, was the reason that, you know, certain circumstances weren't meeting up because of God, or was it because of man? Like we were having that discussion. And I said, well, sometimes man is in the way of, you know, it isn't always God. You know, God gives us that free will, right? So there's some leadership things happening that is stopping some situations, right? I mean, just like flying somewhere, or, you know, is that God or man, right? So
well, it could be any. I mean, you know, I'm in a similar situation. I mean, there are situations that are outside of our control.
that's right. Right.
And
And
it
that's
doesn't even need to be God. It's just life. I mean,
right.
you know, you know, I've said this to people before, but I go, it's sort of a wake up call when you realize that life is this giant machine with gears that stop for no one.
Right.
We live, we're born, we live, we die. That cycle's
Right.
been going on for thousands of years, and history doesn't stop. And often you know, you get, you know, life can crush you, right?
Yes.
And it's not your fault, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, it's not decisions that you made. It's things are just circumstantial, you know, because there are forces at work that are bigger than you, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, that's why we have survival instincts, because we're dealing with things. You know, my dear friend Grace is down at St. Vincent's. You know, they had a massive earthquake. You know,
Yeah.
well, nobody caused that's just, you know, the cycles of nature, right? And
Well,
yet all these humans are having to deal with the consequences of this.
you told that story, and then later on that day, I heard about the rest of the story was that people that didn't get the V word couldn't go on these boats.
Mm.
Did you know that?
No, I didn't hear that. So
They were on the island,
know,
and
I was
if you
teasing
didn't have
her
the V
that,
word,
yeah,
just
well,
gonna
I
call
was
the V.
teasing her that, you know, growing up Roman Catholic, we had Ash Wednesday. And I said, Grace, you now have Ash April. Like the whole month
Oh
is
my
Ash.
God.
And the reason is, and she was showing me pictures, it's just there's dust everywhere. Like the
Wow.
whole island, you know what I mean? It's just
Well, yeah,
covered
it's
in
a
dust.
volcano.
You know, and people are
Oh.
wearing masks just to breathe.
Heather's in need of something, a long vacation on the water.
Okay.
Somebody's having a celebration soon.
Yeah.
Her next week.
So,
maybe.
you know, so there's that whole side of things, which is
That's-
that just life, right?
Is she okay?
Then there's
Everything okay with
situations
her?
that are decisions that we made, right? Because decisions have consequences. This is one of the fundamental teachings of Jesus, right? You sow, you reap. You know, you sow, you reap. So all decisions have consequences.
Well,
you know?
that's true. Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're living in a culture right now where they are trying to, you know, not have consequences for decisions. So,
Yeah.
so we're, you know, people don't want to be responsible for their choices. So you have that, right?
Yeah.
Then there's the God thing. So, and what I mean
Yeah.
by that is there are those circumstances where God's finger is in, or his hand is at work.
I
And
know.
so it can be any
It's
of
so
the three.
right. It's
And
so
you have
hard to
to
explain
stop
that
it,
to
right?
someone.
So if you're asking God, you know,
Yeah.
this is why I get confused sometimes, because I got people who are reaping what they sowed and they're asking God to fix it. And you're going, well, God didn't get you into the mess. Why are you asking him to get you out of it? In other words, you made the choice. So
Well, I
you
mean, but there
need
are
to
other
work
people
on getting yourself out.
Yeah. I mean, you can't fly overseas right now, so it's not God's fault, is it?
No,
Right.
no.
It's definitely no.
What we might discover, oh my God, don't be too controversial here.
Oh no,
That
here
we're
we
reaping
go.
what we sowed, and that this was a man-made thing.
Ooh.
Ooh,
Go
wouldn't that be
figure.
interesting?
I counted how many V words were on a show today.
Oh
V
yeah,
words. V words. I'm just calling it the V.
the V. Okay.
Because I don't want to get flagged, you know, because people listen.
Oh yeah.
Or anyway, the bots listen. Nobody listens but the bots. But anyway,
You're funny.
and in 5 minutes, they said the V word 13 times.
Right.
13. How do you interject that word 13
you want
times?
me to say my controversial thing today? So I got to have one controversial thing to throw into the mix, since we've shifted gears. Then the bumblebee is now in a completely different flower.
The bumblebee.
We've gone from tulips to daisies. So no, one of the questions that is going to be interesting, because remember, you know, we're in the news, right? We're in a news cycle. So we're getting stories in the moment. But what always happens is that as we get farther away from something, it becomes history. And then the historians get a hold of it. And the story ends up looking very different, right? Because in the moment, we didn't have all the facts, right?
Right.
So one of the things that's going to be really interesting to me is the fact that now, a year later, we have discovered there are all kinds of over-the-counter drugs, right? Readily available. Were available like last year, right? That have saved the lives of millions of people around the world.
Yeah.
So the reason I bring this up is because when history, 20 years from now, historians are going to factor that in, going, wait a minute, there were solutions that were readily available that could have saved millions of lives. And it's not the political side, it was the scientific side. It wasn't the president of the United States, which everybody wants to point fingers at. It
Right.
was the medical, quote, experts who told people you can't do that.
I know.
Right?
What the
So this
heck?
is where it gets interesting to me when I hear the phrase follow the science. Right?
Yeah, funny.
Right. So
Science got
we follow
funky
the
last
science.
year.
And then what historians are going to say in hindsight is, no, you didn't.
No. So that's what
and
happened
just so
last
people
year.
know, just so I can put a caveat in here, what I'm talking about is that there are over-the-counter medicines. There was one early on, hydrochloroquine or whatever,
Mhm,
but the
mhm.
big one is ivermectin or something. I didn't. It's a very, very popular anti-parasitic medicine that veterinarians use all over the place and all
Yes.
across Africa and India, outside of the West. They're
Uh-huh.
using that with vitamin D, zinc, and vitamin C, and they've cured millions of people, like
Yes.
millions of people with this.
Yes.
And so it doesn't prevent you, right? Where the shot is
Right.
supposed to prevent you from getting it. So it's
Right.
not a preventative, but
Right.
it's a curative, I guess you would
It's
call
an
it.
immune booster.
Well, but I mean,
So-
it actually knocks, it helps the body knock out the thing
Right.
naturally, right?
Because your body works like that.
So this is going to be really interesting to me because I love history, how this moment is going to be recorded years later, because there's all kinds of things, that were right in front of us, like sitting there, that could have solved problems that we were told we couldn't do.
Well, I watched something the other day where a physician said it's never been cold and flu season. It's always been low vitamin D season.
Yeah.
And he said, you need to up your vitamin D. So it's a vitamin D season, not a flu.
And this was something I discovered about 5 years ago. I saw this study of all of the people that are hospitalized with serious illnesses, and they all had the one common denominator of everyone was low vitamin D.
Yep.
So when this gets a little confusing, again, it's these sliding scales, right? Is the number one source for vitamin D is the sun.
Right.
But then we're told if we get too much sun, we get cancer.
Right.
Right? You see what I mean? It's that same thing again. Right? So we got all kinds of people going to the beaches, putting sunscreen on, blocking the sun so they can't get vitamin D.
Right.
You see what I mean? So this is where sometimes I feel like when I'm listening to the scientists, I'm watching a tennis match, right? Your head is just spinning back and forth, going, "Wait a minute, can somebody agree? Like, what's the balance here?"
Things that make you go,
It's 30 minutes to an hour a day.
Yes.
Yeah. Would that be correct? Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Being outside in the sun. So today in Kansas City, it's sunny.
Sunny.
So get outside, get out of your car.
Yes. Do it today because tomorrow it's going to snow. Just saying. I am not happy. Tomorrow in Kansas City is going to be snow flurries. So welcome spring. But Sandy will be on a plane. on Friday,
Oh, you leaving out of town on Friday?
leaving on a jet plane.
Are you going to make Heather jealous?
Well, she's got her own little fun little festivities, which I am going to miss, and I'm going to be sad that I'm missing it.
No, but I'm just saying she's talking about water and all this kind of
Yes.
stuff. Are you gonna make
She
her
does
jealous?
need a long vacation on the water. I have to admit, she does. She's got a lot of festivities with her children coming up. So,
All right.
so yeah, most
Yeah.
definitely.
Well,
but yeah,
I'm
I'm
sure
going to-
there's some farmer down south of Kansas City would let her go bring her chair and sit by his
Well,
pond.
that's what I think too. we got to hang out downtown Kansas City this last weekend, and a person that we were visiting had an apartment right on Power and Light, and you could see the whole city. Oh my
I
goodness.
saw your photos. I'm like,
Beautiful.
wow, I was like jealous looking at that view going, oh my goodness.
I know. That's what we were like. We were like, whoa. So it makes me rethink my whole thing in Florida, on where I'm going to live, because there's a place in Tampa that's like that,
Oh yeah.
that has that view. And I'm
Well,
like,
man, at night, wow, you know what I mean? Just sitting up there looking out over the city.
yes.
So one of my favorite spots is Liberty Memorial, because
Oh, yeah.
if you live in Kansas City, that's the famous World War I museum, but it's up on a hill overlooking Kansas City. And to go there at night and just look over the city, it's a stunning view.
Oh, she's making me feel guilty. Here we go.
Okay.
Thanks, Heather.
All right. So
sorry,
girls,
Heather.
we need to have a healing session here.
Yes, and what it is my I'm pet sitting, so I'm flying down to go pet sit.
Oh, that's an excuse. I see.
Well, no, seriously, I am.
So you're
Seriously.
basically saying, Heather, it's out of my control. I have to.
Well,
go
I know.
pet
I
sit."
told her early on. I said,
Okay.
"Listen, I might have to pet sit during your thing."
So you know what poor Heather's doing? She's
What?
going. What is this pet? Is
It's
this
a dog.
cat or a dog,
It's
right?
a Weimar
So
Runner.
you have
Weimar-
chosen a dog over your
Oh,
friend.
thanks, Bob. Thank you, Bob.
Ah,
She said, "No, we are all good."
I
Okay.
know. I'm just giving you a hard time.
Thank you, Heather, because I was so worried about it. I was like, "Oh, she's gonna kill me," and I'm like,
Well,
"Because I missed it."
Heather's at that stage, where I was with kids in sports.
glad.
It's like you run from work to games,
Yes, Bob, you nailed it. Uh-oh. No, I did not pick a dog, but there's other circumstances, and I can't share it publicly. So anyhow,
Ooh. So now it's a mystery. So we all have to put our detective hats on and find out what the real story is here. So
She
we
goes,
need to
"Just
become
kidding."
investigative journalists.
yeah, we'll soak up the non-son of. Yeah, she's going to Oklahoma. And
OKC.
Not
Well, that's because
Arizona.
she's a country girl. I noticed
She
the other day
is. She
she's
is.
gonna go. She put her on the riding. We need to take her down to Gillies and
Yeah.
or Fort Worth, and she could ride the bronc.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that, Heather. Let's go to Texas. Let's take a little trip
Yeehaw.
to Texas. I'll meet you there.
Yeehaw.
But yeah, I'm setting off on my journey. If anybody has any recommendations on what area of Tampa to live in, Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater, which one? I'm having a really hard time. I'm like, where do I live? Where? I just know that I'll know when I see it, Yeah. Oh, listen, yeah, she knows Gillies.
Exactly. I would figured she would. I mean, you can't be a country girl and not know Gillies.
I don't know Gillies.
Well,
I'm
then
not
you're
a
not
country
a true
girl.
country girl.
I'm a city girl.
What was that singer that was
Gillies.
Gretchen Wilson.
Funny enough, I was wearing her hat yesterday.
Oh, well, there
she
you
signed
go.
it for me.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Redneck woman.
right.
I ain't
Yeah,
no
she had some fun songs.
She is so cool. She's from Poplar Bluff, Missouri.
Oh, is she?
Yes, she is. And
I
I
know
met
Sheryl
her,
Crow's from Missouri as well.
huh?
Cheryl Crow is from Missouri as
Yeah.
well.
And I met Gretchen at Knuckleheads in Virginia Beach, not the Knuckleheads here. There's a Knuckleheads in Virginia Beach.
Okay.
And a friend of ours owned the bar, and he let us get in for the private, and she literally took that JD bottle and upped it.
Mhm.
And needless to say, they had to hold her up and as she's signing my hat. So I have a Gretchen Wilson
So her
hat.
songs were
Actually, it's right over there.
very personal.
Yeah. She was a trip.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was wearing that hat yesterday, actually. It was funny.
Okay.
And I have a shirt that goes along with it too. But I'm not that, but I like her. So.
I was listening to Waylon Jennings last night.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Merle Haggard, Waylon
Well,
Jennings.
one of my friends is Michael Martin Murphey, who wrote Wildfire. And a lot of people don't know this story, but it was Michael Murphy who decided to grow his hair out and was really the father of what they call outlaw country, right? Which ended
Outlaw
up being
country,
Waylon, Chris
Yep.
Christopherson,
Yep.
Willie
I
Nelson.
didn't know he was I didn't know that.
Yeah. It was actually Michael Martin Murphy. In fact, if you go back, if you ever want to see something funny, you
Look at
go
Heather.
back
You know
and
him?
go back and look at early Willie Nelson.
Yeah.
He looks like a used car salesman. I mean, his hair is real short and everything. Yeah. So it was Michael that actually told Willie, dude, you know what I mean? It's like you need
Grow your hair out, dude.
change your image. So it was Michael
That's
that grew
funny.
his hair out, into the, he was sort of that hippie cowboy, and he was sort of the guy that got these other guys to let's be a little rebellious. You know what I mean?
That Wildfire song is so sad. I always cried at that song.
Yeah.
I didn't like that song.
Yeah, Michael does a Christmas tour every year.
I mean,
And
sorry,
so-
Michael. I like your song, but it's a sad song.
Yeah.
I went out when you're a little girl and you're listening to that and you're like, oh, a horse.
I know.
Like,
That's a beautiful song.
Just like the Send in the Clown song.
Mm-hmm.
What about that song?
Well, I was talking to a lady on Saturday night. And we were talking just about the power of music, and I was explaining to her, I go, if you think about it, music is so powerful that it can actually change our mood.
Oh, yeah.
it can change us. It can impact us. And so,
No, Michael, we weren't talking about you,
we're
Michael.
talking about Michael
Sorry.
Martin Murphy.
I just came back on. Oh, we're sorry. We weren't talking about you. We can talk about you.
Well, if we talked
Thank
about
you
him,
for
we
being on
would
our
talk
show
about
last week,
Mickey
by the way.
Mouse.
Huh?
Mighty Mouse.
Yes. Mighty Mouse.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I overtalked you last week, Michael.
So, anyways, yeah. So that I just am fascinated by the whole music world, having run a record company for a decade. Because you just saw what music can do to people. I mean, it can drive a whole crowd into a frenzy. So
He said, let's not say we did. My mom used to always say that. Oh, she's heard Michael Jones sing. I didn't know he could sing.
well, he's got daughters that can all sing.
Oh, I don't remember that.
I didn't know that came from the Jones side of the family. I think it came from the other side.
Oh.
Their mom was a singer, so.
Oh, okay.
No.
Well, there, new stuff all the time.
Mhm.
Well, all right. Well, you guys take care and have a
Have
wonderful
a good
week.
So
We didn't get very controversial.
we had
Very
a little one. I just threw that one in about looking back.
well. I now am calling it the V word.
You're so funny.
The V word. Let's see. Well, I think it's. Let's see. I think
So,
it's from.
so here's my Monday quote to leave everyone.
Okay, what is it?
Monday is a state of mind. Put on your positive pants and get stuff done.
Ooh, it is. Yes. Okay, there we go.
The Monday state of mind.
Yeah, a Monday state of mind. Get stuff done. That's how I feel this week before I fly off on Friday.
All right. Well, we'll see you Thursday, and the
I'll
rest
see you
of you have a good
Thursday,
week.
but we might not have anything next week because I don't know if we'll
Can
see.
handle all of it because you'll be dog sitting,
Exactly.
abandoning
That
your
dog
friend
might,
Heather.
the dog might take a lot of time.
Oh, okay. This is a very needy dog that needs a lot of attention.
It's a cute dog though. So, all right. Well,
All
have a
right.
wonderful
God
week,
bless all
everyone.
of you.
Thank you, the Kittlesons, for joining us too, and Michael Jones and all of you. Thank you. We appreciate you. So
All
have
right.
a wonderful day.
All right.
All right.
God bless. Bye-bye.
Bye.